In today's video, in honor of Infertility Awareness Week, I'd like to share with you all my journey with in vitro fertilization. If you're interested, please stick around. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day today. If you're a return subscriber, I really do appreciate your continued support. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to my channel. Everyone give this video a big thumbs up, click on that notification bell and select it to all. That way you'll be notified when I upload my next video. Before we get started, I do want to issue a trigger warning. If you are sensitive to topics such as pregnancy and pregnancy loss, please click off now. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. My journey started in June of 2010, and I had just turned 30. My husband and I had talked about trying for children a few years before, but trying at 30 seemed like the right time for us. Like so many other couples, we figured that getting pregnant was going to be easy as well as fun, but that dream was not a reality. 8 months of trying, each month rewarded with Aunt Flo, whom I resented more and more with each passing month. Friends of ours that had started trying at the same time as us called us one day to tell us that they had won the race to get pregnant first. A race that I didn't even know existed and that I never asked to be a part of. It was the first stab in the heart with many to come. I stopped talking to them after that. Frustrated and worried that something was wrong, I went ahead and booked an appointment with an OB/GYN. A physical exam and a thyroid test later, I was told to keep trying for another 4 months since I was only 30 years old, and they say it can take up to a year of actively trying before getting pregnant. At that point, it was no longer fun anymore to try, and it became a chore, and I wondered, would it ever be fun again? 4 months crept by with no change, and at that point I honestly wasn't shocked because I knew something was wrong with either myself or my husband, but my gut told me that it was me. Eager to find out what the hell was going on, I booked an appointment with our local reproductive endocrinologist. We came up with a testing game plan, and the first hurdle was to get my husband tested, which honestly took way longer than it should have. He got the all clear, and then it was my turn. My RE needed to see if my fallopian tubes were clear, so I was scheduled for an HSG test. I went in thinking that it was going to be no big deal, didn't even take any pain medication beforehand. Big mistake. I laid on that table staring at the ceiling while squeezing the nurse's hand, trying my best not to pass out from the overwhelming pain of having fluid forced through my fallopian tubes. I'm not exaggerating when I say that that was the worst pain I've ever had in my entire life. Diagnosis: hydrosalpingitis escherichia nodosa with a side of hyperlactin and hypothyroidism. In other words, my fallopian tubes were filled with layers upon layers of scar tissue that formed hard nodules. One tube was completely closed, and the other took the shape of a sausage link, indicating it was filled with fluid which is toxic to embryos. I don't remember crying in the RE's office when we discussed my limited options, but I was devastated to be sure. My body had betrayed me, robbed me of what most women can do naturally. My options at that point were to try Clomid for 3 months and hope that the one tube that was open would result in a pregnancy, and if not, I needed to go in for surgery to remove one or both of the tubes and then start the IVF process. Giving up was not an option. So I started taking Clomid, and honestly it felt like a huge waste of time, but my RE wanted to try absolutely everything before going into IVF. Those 3 months felt like an entire year. Physically, I was in pain because it felt like my ovaries were the size of softballs, and emotionally I was getting worse. I was a total wreck that no one wanted to be around. 2 of my good friends had gotten pregnant within months of each other. Seeing them gleefully discussing how great it was that their children would grow up to be best friends was emotional torture for me. I became distant in order to protect myself from the constant reminder that they could achieve what I couldn't. They couldn't understand why I didn't want to join in on the mommy-to-be conversations, why I wasn't showing outwardly that I was over the moon happy for them. Truth is, I was happy for them, very happy, but at the same time I was sad for myself. If you've never been through it, you'll never understand how emotionally confusing it is. Everything seemed to become a trigger for me. The baby aisle in grocery stores, social media posts of pregnancy announcements, belly shots, baby pictures, TV commercials, pregnant women absolutely everywhere, Halloween, Mother's Day, gender reveal parties, and baby showers. I literally wanted to find a cave somewhere and just hide for the rest of my life, but that's clearly not realistic, so I had to put on the bravest face that I could, and at times that wasn't enough. While out to dinner one night with some friends of ours that were expecting, the husband bluntly asked me not to attend his wife's baby shower because he didn't want me ruining it for everyone else that was there. His wife was horrified, and it took everything in me not to burst into tears at the dinner table. I was already an emotional wreck from the Clomid that I was taking, so I left to the bathroom to cry alone. I went back to the table humiliated and ashamed. Thinking back on it, he honestly did me a huge favor because I knew deep down inside that I couldn't handle being at that baby shower anyways. Seeing all the cute baby clothes, knowing full well that that may never be me, never getting to have a baby of my own, never getting to experience pregnancy. 3 months came and went with no success to the shock of absolutely no one. So, I was scheduled for surgery at the end of July. My RE removed my right tube due to the fluid it had in it, and the fluid could be toxic to the embryos he would hopefully transfer later, so it was best to just take it out. Not that I cared. Hell, honestly, take them both, I told him. They clearly weren't doing me a damn bit of good anyways. He left me the left one just in case by some miracle it decided to open itself back up. He tried to get it open, but he had no success. After a month of recovery, I was finally ready to start the IVF process. Many emotions ran through my head the closer we got to the start date. Excitement, fear, and doubt were the most common. IVF is exceedingly expensive. For my clinic, it was $14,000 for a fresh IVF cycle, an additional $1,000 for cryopreservation for any remaining embryos, and $3,360 for a frozen embryo transfer if the fresh cycle didn't work out. Unfortunately, most companies don't offer infertility treatment coverage in their healthcare insurance plan, but we were very lucky and my husband's company did, which ended up paying for most of our IVF cycles. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the process of IVF, I'll go ahead and walk you through it. The first step is starting the medication, and there is a lot. For me, I had to have 3 shots a day in the abdomen, and I also took pills. The purpose was to get my body to produce a lot of follicles so that my RE could retrieve as many eggs as possible. My RE regularly checked the size of my follicles and adjusted my medication as needed. Once they were of adequate size, I was given an HCG shot, also known as a trigger shot, so that my eggs would be ready for harvesting early the next morning. For the egg retrieval, they put me under general anesthesia. My RE took a large needle, inserted it, and gently sucked out the eggs from the follicles. When I came to, my RE told me that he had successfully retrieved 8 eggs and that they were headed to the lab to be mixed with my husband's sperm. I tell you, my husband really had the easy job in all of this, I must say. When the eggs and sperm are joined in the lab, the embryologist watches to see if they fertilize on their own. If they aren't, the embryologist performs an ICSI, which is the process of selecting a sperm and inserting it directly into the egg. I was lucky because all 8 of my eggs fertilized on their own and were left to grow. On day 3 of the growing process, the embryologist selected the 2 best embryos I had, and my RE transferred them to my uterus. The process itself was pretty easy, aside from the fact that I needed to have a full bladder and I wasn't allowed to pee. My remaining 6 embryos I had left were left to grow in hopes of reaching the blastocyst stage so they could be cryopreserved for future cycles. Unfortunately, 5 out of my 6 embryos arrested development naturally in the lab, and only 1 little embryo made it to cryopreservation. So, I was now in what we in the community refer to as the dreaded 2-week wait, waiting to see if the embryo stuck and continued to grow. If you think the 2-week wait sounds horrible, it is. Questioning every little twinge, every little symptom, wondering if you're pregnant or if it's just a side effect from the progesterone shots you get every day to help build the uterine lining, it's nerve-wracking and it feels like an eternity. On October 9th, my 2-week wait was finally up and I went in for my beta blood test and nervously awaited my results. When I finally got the call, I was so excited to learn that I was actually finally pregnant, and they told me to come back in 2 days for a second beta blood test to make sure that my HCG levels doubled like they should. I was over the moon happy. My husband was happy. All of our family was happy. For 2 days I chatted with my little bean, or beans, daydreaming of the day that I could hold my baby, or babies, in my arms, thanking God all the while for my miracle that I had so desperately wanted. I went in for my second beta test, and later that day I received news that no IVF patient wants to hear, that my levels didn't double, my pregnancy wasn't viable, and that I was going to miscarry. I went in the following day for an ultrasound to be sure. My RE couldn't find any sign of my baby. Just like that, my dreams were crushed. I cried in the nurse's arms before returning to my RE to discuss the plan going forward. We decided that the next step would be to transfer my one and only surviving embryo in February. The months leading up to February were the hardest of my life. My friend had given birth as I was miscarrying. Trying my best to be a good friend, we paid them a visit, and honestly, I handled it a lot better than I thought I would have. Grieving was difficult, and to this day it still hurts to even think about, but with each passing day it got a little easier. I spent a great deal of time with my family, and we even went to Disneyland 2 weeks before my scheduled frozen embryo transfer. February 20th had come, and my little embryo was thawed and ready to be transferred. Fortunately, I didn't have to pee nearly as bad because I refused to have my bladder that full ever again, so it was a much more pleasant experience. And just like that, I was back in the dreaded 2-week wait again, and I was more worried this time than the first time around because it was my last embryo. During the 2-week wait, I had convinced myself that the cycle had failed, which really irritated my mother, but I didn't want to get my hopes up again. Beta test day came, and I had to wait an entire workday before I got the call with my results. I was pregnant again. I was happy yet cautious because of how things played out the first time. I tried not to worry but failed miserably. I went back in for my second beta test 2 days later and was overjoyed to learn that my numbers had more than doubled. Finally, a miracle. On February 22nd, I went in for my first ultrasound at 7 weeks gestation, and for the first time I got to see my little miracle baby and its precious, precious heartbeat. I laid there crying tears of joy, thanking both God and my RE for turning a dream into a reality. On February 28th, I got to see my little miracle baby again at 7 weeks, 6 days gestation. All was well with my little bean. I said goodbye to my RE and was transferred to an OBGYN. My pregnancy had its ups and downs, but I was grateful for every moment of it, and on November 13th, 2013, I gave birth to my son via emergency C-section. He was the most beautiful baby boy I had ever laid eyes on. I had been dreaming of him for so long, and I was finally able to hold him in my arms, excited for the future ahead. I realized that my story was rather long, and I hope I didn't bore you all to tears. My goal is to hopefully bring hope to those that also struggle with infertility, and to also let them know that they are not alone, that their thoughts and feelings are completely normal and it's okay, and that it's also okay to put themselves first. Infertility isn't as rare as you may think it is. 1 in 8 couples struggle to conceive, and chances are that you know a couple that is silently struggling right now. My goal for this video isn't just to share my story, but to offer advice to those who know a couple going through infertility and aren't quite sure how to go about being there for them. So I'm going to provide a list of do's and don'ts that could really help you navigate a very sensitive situation. Please don't offer up unsolicited, unhelpful advice. Trust me, we've tried it all and we've heard it all. Don't take it personally if we don't want to attend your baby shower or gender reveal party. It's just too hard on us emotionally. Please don't tell us to just adopt. Respect that adoption isn't for everyone. It isn't cheap, and you aren't guaranteed a baby. Please don't offer to give us your children or say how lucky we are that we can travel, etc. Trust me, we would give it all up just to have what you have. Do give us space when we need it. Be willing to just listen to us or hold us when we cry. Check in on us just to see how we're doing. Ask if there is anything that you can do. Just the thought that you want to help means so much. If you are currently struggling with infertility, I urge you to join the online community Inspire. It's a safe place where you can freely vent your frustrations, seek advice from others who have been there, join a group discussion where everyone is going through a cycle at the same time as you, and so much more. My video isn't sponsored by Resolve or Inspire. I've just found them to be extremely helpful because all members understand and can relate. Well, that's the end of this video, and my son has something to say.
Thank you for listening to my story about me. Bye-bye.
I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend. Remember, if you are new here, please consider subscribing to my channel. Everyone give this video a big thumbs up, and I will see you very shortly on the next one. Bye!